One of the research studies on theracurmin was that it reduced blood alcohol content by 30% in 30 minutes. So, it's a nice thing to think about for liver health. That's actually how marshmallows originated. It was a candy that was made from the marshmallow root because it's so demulcent and soothing for sore throats. So it's an old ancient remedy to make these little candies to give to kids to help, with sore throats. So if you know you're going to have a forest fire around or any sort of toxins that are attacking your lungs or your sinuses or your bronchioles, this is the formula to grab. It's got some NAC in there too, which you guys probably talked about a lot last year on the radio show. And so, it's nice to have that antioxidant in there that we know is really protecting lung tissue.
Welcome back, folks, to episode number 19 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. Back with another episode with Carrie G. Pattison, good friend of ours here, practicing herbalist, licensed acupuncturist, and trained home birth midwife. Carrie's a graduate of the NUNM, the National University of Natural Medicine, and she serves as national educator for natural factors and adjunct professor of herbal studies at Huntington University of Health Sciences. Carrie's originally from rural Alaska, and her love for travel and social justice issues in the developing world led her to undergraduate degrees focused on global development and relief, and fuels her lifelong passion for health and healing. Carrie, welcome back to talk part 2 of allergies and seasonal allergies here in the spring as we approach the spring. How are we doing?
Oh, it's happening. Springtime is rapidly approaching, depending upon where you are. Not here. We're still getting randomness, but the plants will start popping soon for sure.
Absolutely. So last episode, we differentiated liposomal products from quercetin lipomycel matrix, and we learned that there are different things, right? That's an important take home from that episode number 18, as well as the anti-V formula, which comes in capsules and liquid format for the vegans. You might want to choose the liquid since we don't have the beeswax in there. And then we introduced Theracurmin in the tail end of episode 18. So let's pick back up where we were on Theracurmin. And again, I asked you at the end of that episode, people have asked me, can they just juice turmeric versus using a standardized supplement like Theracurmin, which gives us an exact milligram dosage? Go ahead.
Yeah. And I do think that there are definitely benefits to juicing turmeric, right? So, you're not going to hurt yourself by doing it. Keep doing it. But if we're really looking for some of those clinically researched results, then we need to have something that we know is that in that concentrated form. What's interesting about, and this is where people who are listening at Spotify, you're probably going to want to pop over to YouTube and check it out because I'm going to do some things with my hands right now. Okay. So we have the turmeric root. And what's fascinating about curcumin, we talked about this briefly last time. This is the compound that has the most research done, right? It's the thing that we think does the thing in turmeric. So we have the turmeric root, and then we have curcumin. Well, curcumin is one of 3 different curcuminoids that account for only 2 to 5% of that entire root. So this is where, I'm always educating people on what do you look for in a supplement. If you pick up a bottle of turmeric off the shelf and it says 92, 95% curcumin, that's not in its natural state at all. That has been modified in some really drastic way to get those really high levels of curcumin. I'm not actually pro that. Because I don't know if I think it's the actual curcumin that's doing the thing. Maybe it's a compound we haven't discovered yet, or more than likely it's the synergy, right? It's the entire root. So that's why I'm saying people dropping in and putting their root into their smoothing, things like that. Great. You're getting all of those benefits from the turmeric, but we really do need to get, a certain milligram amount of the curcumin in order to get the benefits. So 30 milligrams of curcumin, you think about a root being only 2 to 5% in there, that's a lot of roots to get to that 30 milligrams. Right. So that's where something like theracurmin comes into play. It is the full root, but it's been micro ground down into these really fine particles that then we can absorb. That's why we know it's the number 1 absorbed form. It's 100 times smaller. The curcumin particles, 100 times smaller than standard quercetin or standard curcumin. Woo, sorry, standard curcumin. So when we talk about absorption issues with curcumin, it's because we can imagine the particle sizes this big, right? And we have our gut barrier, all of the cells, and there's actually there's just one cell line in our gut before it gets into our bloodstream. So it's a really, really important barrier. But there's just a little passageway between each. We have this huge, big compound that can't get through. So this is where we do things to help with absorption. So I know one of the favorites out there that a lot of companies use is BioPurine or black pepper. And it does absolutely help with absorption. But what black pepper is it's an inflammatory herb, actually. What it's doing is it's going into the gut and it's tickling everything, all of those gap junctions to make them bigger to where then that particle size can pass through. Well, that's awesome. But you've also just created a leaky gut situation, right? You've created a situation where everything else that's not supposed to be getting through there is getting through there. So that's the magic behind Theracurmin, is that with the curcumin particle being 100 times smaller, we don't have to mess with the gap junction. It's just going to pass through those cells. For Phoenix folks who are listening in the Phoenix area, or anywhere else in the country where you're dealing with heat and things like that, another brilliant thing about Theracurmin is it's heat and light resistant. So you can leave it in your car and know that you're gonna be able to take it. And this is naturally not something that's typical for supplements, right? It's a really unique kind of aspect of it. My favorite thing about Theracurmin is, especially for people who can't do pills, pull the capsule apart and all those granules will immediately disperse in water. It kind of looks like Tang, and it's tasteless. That's the other thing. So I put it in my drinks. I put it in my soup. Put it in water. I have some pets that it goes in their water and they drink it because I know how beneficial it is for them. So, it's a really great way of getting it, even, supporting oral health, because like we talked about on the previous episode, plants don't do just one thing. And turmeric, most people are thinking about it from an supporting a healthy inflammatory response, but it is actually also great for the immune response. And it really is a kind of, it deals with bad bacteria. So I really like people swishing it when they have oral things going on. It's great for that. And it's nice because it's tasteless.
So, but it comes in capsules, soft gels, is that right? Or
Capsules.
so you just open it up.
You just open it up and yep. And it's in a colloidal suspension. So people are going to learn about colloidal, what that means from a chemistry standpoint. And all that means is that all of the compounds are in perfect symmetry with each other. So you'll see it dissipate in the water. Whereas if you took, I'd say people at home, if you have that 92 to 95, standardized turmeric and it's in a capsule, pull it open and drop it in your water. See what happens. You'll see it's just chunky and it floats on the top and eventually it'll fall to the bottom. Whereas Theracurmin dissipates throughout the entire water and you'll have this beautiful orange colored thing that you can drink. Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool.
Taste, really.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
I remember one of the trainings you provided for us and our staff here, we tried it. Remember that? It tastes samples?
Yes. Yeah.
Pass that around. You couldn't taste it at all. It just looks orange. It's like
it just looks orange.
Almost like
it kind of tricks your brain into thinking it's something else, but then you're like, So yeah, I really love putting it in cocktails. One of the research studies on Theracurmin was that it reduced blood alcohol content by 30% in 30 minutes. So, it's a nice thing to think about for liver health, actually. And a lot of allergy reactions can be really looked at from, we've got a lot of toxins and buildup in our liver, and we really need to support our liver. We forget how involved our liver is in our immune system and immune responses. Yeah, it's massive.
So you're giving a case for Theracurmin for seasonal allergies in particular for this segment.
Absolutely.
Most people don't have that on their radar at all for seasonal allergies.
Yeah, yep. There's an actual specific study on Theracurmin and reducing or inhibiting an allergic response. So it was published in the Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine in 2017. So it's a recent study. And it's
Wow.
really cool to know that there is clinical data behind these things.
That's why I love having you on, because we're learning not the typical uses for curcumin and other herbs, like just for pain or inflammation, right? It's going to be helping with allergies. I mean, that's first
Yeah.
to my knowledge. So that's really cool to learn, Carrie. Thank you. And
Yeah.
again, folks, Stan the Demo Man's in house Tuesday through Saturday. And he's like, make sure you tell him, Dr. Dayon, he's got deep discounts here, folks, on Natural Factors' wonderful product line. And he also has coupons and literature so you can learn more and research more. And ask Stan about Theracurmin again, Tuesday through Saturday here at Healthy Habit Health Foods, 6029 North 7th Street in Central Phoenix, Arizona. Tell us, Carrie, about the lung, bronchial, and sinus health formula. Would this also help with seasonal allergies?
Oh
Would it
my
be a
gosh.
good pair? Let's
One
hear
of
it.
my favorites. This is one of those ones that I think, it's not the most exciting name,
Okay.
but it literally says what it does.
Right.
So, I mean, like,
It
how
doesn't
can
beat
you get
around the
any more
bush.
clear than that? Like
Right.
lung, bronchial, and sinus. Um, so it has a lot of ingredients in here that have really wonderful properties for supporting seasonal responses. And we're looking at like bromelain being one of them in there. We know bromelain is helpful for swelling and supporting inflammation of the sinuses and the bronchioles specifically. I think we talked in the last episode about class switching with our antibodies and getting our antibodies to stop being IgE, which is the allergy antibody, and start being IgM, which is the cold and flu antibody. And I do think that there are plants in here that are helping to support that class switching thing. We know that there are some of the ingredients are helping to reduce eosinophils and CD4 cells. And so these are all about the Th2 response, which is the immune response that gives us the watery eyes, runny nose, coughing, hacking, asthma like situations. So really preventing that, stopping that, supporting that is a wonderful thing about what the lung, bronchial, and sinus can do. So when I think about somebody who would take the lung, bronchial, and sinus, it would be like, oh, I'm a soccer player and I know that spring grass, I really have challenges with seasonal support around spring grass. So, taking this before they went out onto the pitch kind of a thing. Or it's also the one that I absolutely shove into everybody's hands during firefighting season. So if you're going to have a forest fire around or any sort of toxins that are attacking your lungs or your sinuses or your bronchioles, this is the formula to grab. It's got some NAC in there too, which you guys probably talked about a lot last year on the radio show. And so, it's nice to have that antioxidant in there that we know is really protecting lung tissue at the end of the day. So, there's all of the things that NAC does, but we forget about its ability to really protect the very, very delicate lung tissue that we have.
So again, as we're speaking right now, Carrie, there's customers in the store right now in the seasonal allergy section, roaming around the lung sinus area. So again, lung, bronchial, sinus health. You see it right there in the bottle.
Does it all. So it's one that's really great for helping to prevent any sort of seasonal concern, but it's also one that's really helping to support you when you're already, excess mucus, coughing, things like that. So I like that it's dual natured in its ability to support and prevent at the same time.
And I like how, like you said, it's so straight to the point, this formula.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7 ingredients, NAC from top to bottom, bromelain, marshmallow extract, mullein, wild cherry, horehound, and ivy extract.
Yeah.
You and I have never discussed marshmallow. I think it's such an awesome herb. You can use it.
It is.
It's so soothing. Tell us about marshmallow a bit.
You can make marshmallows with marshmallow. They do not look like anything that people would think would be a marshmallow, but it does have this that's actually how marshmallows originated, were it was a candy that was made from the marshmallow root because
Really?
it's so demulcent and soothing for sore throats.
Hmm.
So it's an old ancient remedy to make these little candies to give to kids to help, with sore throats. And what marshmallow root is I said demulcent, but it's got a lot of juicy kind of stickiness in it and soothing, really, really soothing and coating everything in the body. So it's great for digestive issues as well. It really coats. So if we know that there's, those gap junctions aren't very happy in your gut, marshmallow roots are really nice when I give it to people in tea form, but the plant itself, but you have to be really careful because it gets really, it gets really slimy really, really fast because that's what it's doing in the body. It's getting slimy. So if we have a lung situation where our lungs are too dry, it's really going to go in there and it's going to soothe things, or our throat is too dry. It's going to go in there and it's going to soothe things. Beautiful flowers. I have them growing in my
Really?
garden,
Wow.
these huge stalks of Althea. So yeah, and then these massive, massive big roots that you can literally break and see the stickiness in there.
And I know some people didn't catch that, but someday you mentioned Althea. That's just the botanical, official, scientific
Yes.
name of marshmallow, Althea officinalis.
I have an herbalist friend who named her daughter that, which I mean, I
Really?
just think is really
That's a
beautiful.
that's a
Like
cool
it's
name.
beautiful name. Yeah, for sure.
Marshmallow. Her name's Marshmallow, essentially.
Her name is Marshmallow.
So as far as I know, we're always using the root of that plant, right? I've never seen a
Correct.
leaf being used, and right?
I've read some things historically where there were some First Nation groups that might have used it in
Okay.
smoking blends and things like that. And smoking blends are so fascinating to me,
Right.
especially from the perspective of lung support. But yeah, it's the root that we really want to get the demulcents from.
Yeah. And what we
Mullein is an herb for sure that the all aspects of the mullein plant, from the root to the leaves to the flowers, that one's all used in medicine.
Interesting. In this particular formula, it looks like the leaf is what's being used for the mullein, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and mullein leaves are I think this is one that really points to the doctrine of signatures, which we can talk about sometime in the future, but this idea that plants look like what they do in our bodies. And so the mullein leaf is really big and has all these little veins running through, and it really looks like the lobe of the lung with all our alveoli in there. Like it literally looks like the lung. And then if you go into the store and you have ear issues and somebody gives you mullein ear extract, that's from the flowers. And the flowers are these little yellow things that have the shape of the ear. It's so cool. So I had a couple of winters ago, mullein plant just showed up in my front yard and started growing. And I was like, I'm not cutting you down. I'm going to see what this is all about. And then all of a sudden, one of my neighbors had this horrific lung thing. And I was like, now I know why the mullein showed up. But yeah, and this is a plant that grows in literally all 50 states. So everybody has seen mullein. Nobody knows what it looks like, right? But I guarantee you it's growing in the middle of the freeway. I always think it's there, like trying to keep our air clean, doing its darndest for us. So it grows in these rosettes, and then then it shoots these stalks up, and you see these beautiful, beautiful yellow flowers.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing how nature works? Give us a
it
little
is.
idea of what we can use it for. So that's the
Yep.
lung, bronchial, and sinus health, folks. If you're having those seasonal allergies, this might be one that you can look towards. I like that. NAC is right at the top of the list there. We have the most of the NAC in there. Carrie, why is that?
200 milligrams. That's the amount that we know research is showing us we need when we're addressing certain situations.
Amazing. So we have about, let's see here, about just under 10 minutes to go. I want to touch on charcoal then. That's one thing that you and I have never discussed. How can
Yeah.
this play a role in everything we're discussing here with seasonal allergies and Theracurmin and
Well, we've been
yeah.
talking about seasonal allergies, but I mean, allergies in general, people have food sensitivity too. So the exact same process is happening in the body when somebody has a food allergy. So we mentioned peanuts earlier, and this is anaphylactic shock is terrifying. Like, right? This is a
Mhm.
life-threatening condition. And when in the previous episode, when we talked a little bit about what is happening in an allergic reaction, we talked about mast cell degeneration degeneration and all these IgE antibodies that are running through our body. Well, what happens in anaphylactic shock is that we have an abundance of these IgE that are looking for this allergen, and we get a particulate of it, and every single IgE in our body says, mast cells, throw out your toxins. We got to kill this parasite. And so all of a sudden, and like histamine, like I mentioned earlier, is just one of a category of toxins that are being released. And, they're good toxins, right? That's the thing about it. Like the body is doing its job appropriately. It's just not in an appropriate situation. Yeah. So it's an exaggeration. It's an overreaction. And so what happens in this anaphylactic shock is that, boom, all of these mast cells throw out all the toxins all at once, and our body is just ripe with them. And that's where we get these life-threatening situations. So the idea is, how can we prevent that mast cell degeneration? How can we prevent the IgE from building up and all of these things, especially with food allergies? So I really like charcoal as something that you can utilize for dealing with any sort of gut-related trauma, is a good way of saying it, right? You ate something bad, or that you're about to, Montezuma's revenge kind of a thing, right? So it's really great for addressing I always take it when I'm traveling. Like if I'm overseas anywhere, guarantee you I have charcoal, because as soon as I feel like, oops, something's going on in my belly, I'm going to start taking it, because it actually is the charcoal itself, and the way it's processed is really unique. We can't just like pull it out of a campfire or something, right? Okay. But it's got enough of these little kind of spots inside it that it's like Swiss cheese. And into those holes, all of the toxins go, and then they're held in there and we can eliminate them. But there was research from St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto that I thought was really fascinating on charcoal and food sensitivities, where what they did is they gave activated charcoal, which is what you find in the supplement form, immediately after exposure to peanuts, and it blocked further absorption of the proteins in the peanut. And because it's not always the peanut, it's the protein on the peanut, right? Or there are so many people that think that they're allergic to certain foods or have a gluten issue. And really at the end of the day, I'm like, well, we probably are allergic to the pesticides that are being utilized, right? Like it might not be the food, it might be the chemicals that are coming with the food at the end of the day. I think this is really like such a thing, because people go, they go to Italy and they're like, I ate pasta the entire time I was there and I didn't have a problem. And I came home and I had, one piece of spaghetti and I'm sick for 2 days.
I've heard that a lot.
There's something to that, right?
Yeah. Well, I've heard that people have gone to Belgium and they've had croissants, no problem. And yeah.
Yep. And then they get on the this is the one where they get on the airplane and they're like, oh, crackers. And then they're like, oh no. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, actually. I mean, it's really, you just want to fly those croissants in from Belgium.
Let me quickly summarize that then, if I'm understanding it correctly. You said charcoal has like these pores in it, right? It's like porous, it's a porous molecule if you look under the microscope, and then that's sucking in all the toxins and offending agents and helps us carry that out through the bowel movements and urine. Is that a good way to look at that?
Yeah, and you get rid of it, and really what it's going to do is it reduces the severity of the reaction that your body was going to have to whatever it was that you consumed. So, anytime you get into anything that you're like, oh no, what did I just eat? This is going to be a problem. Charcoal is your best friend for that, for sure.
Okay, and so how would one take that? Like 2 capsules, 1, 3? How would you go about that?
I can't remember what we say I would just follow whatever the bottle says, because the bottle lays it out really, really clearly on how much to take. I can't remember.
Perfect.
If you scroll down to the bottom, I think that there's one that says like recommended dosage. Yeah, there you go.
2 soft gels 3 to 4 hours before or after meals. take no more than 3 consecutive days on the charcoal. And
Yeah, because it's really powerful. It is cleaning you out. So that's
yeah,
where if, there have been times where I'm, in a village somewhere and I'm going to somebody's house to eat and, I have to eat the food because that's what you do, right? You can't turn down anybody's food, and I would take charcoal as a preventative measure beforehand.
amazing. And we're looking at the natural factors activated charcoal, which relieves excess gas and bloating. That's one use of it, among the others that Carrie just mentioned. We got about 500 milligrams, half a gram per serving. And this is coming
Mhm.
from coconut shells.
Yeah,
Interesting.
no.
How does that
Yeah,
work?
and which is one of my preferred ways to get it, because I think, it's sustainable. There's some really nice things about the coconut shells as well. So
Perfect. Thanks
yeah.
for that, Carrie. So we're
Yeah.
coming to the tail end here of episode 19 with Carrie G. Pattison, part two of our seasonal allergy discussion. What's a good recap? What can we take home? We mentioned the Theracurmin at the end of episode 18, as well as the beginning of this episode, the lung,
Mhm.
bronchial, sinus health, and then, of course, that activated charcoal product. Give us a little recap, Carrie.
Well, all of the products that we talked about today are really about helping to support, stop, alter, calm an immune response, an exaggerated immune response, because that's all an allergic response is the body doing its job aggressively. So we also, I think, a lot of the things we talked about, which we didn't touch on today, these can actually help support the damage done by, certain types of pollens. These pollens can have really big barbs on them and cut into the mucus and things like that. So I think as a lot of people have allergies, and then they end up with, sinus issues because it's really damaged the tissue. So, looking at how supplements can really be incorporated into your everyday routine, or something like the quercetin lipomycel matrix can be, or the lung bronchial sinus, or the actually everything we talked about today
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of something, when you're really feeling like you walked outside and, oh my gosh, it is springtime out here, I am struggling, try and grab those supplements that you probably already have in your house, you've had for a while, to help with immune support, and attempt to utilize them in a new way.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Naturalfactors.com, everybody. Naturalfactors.com. Enjoy your time off the grid there in the cabin.
Thanks, I will.
We
All right,
appreciate
see
you.
you guys next time.